I'd like to transition now to faithfulness. Staying faithful even when it's hard. This is probably my favorite lesson out of everything I'll talk about, because it's one of those little golden nuggets that most of the time, I don't know how many times I've read through the Bible and I never saw this, but the Lord stopped me one day and showed me the story of Rizpah. So let's look at it. The main characters are the Gibeonites, King David, Saul's concubine Rizpah, Saul's sons and daughters. One of his daughters was Michal. And the setting, there's a famine in Israel. I'm going to read a little bit, and then we'll talk about what we learned from this. Now, there was a famine in the days of David for 3 years, year after year. And David inquired of the Lord, and the Lord answered, "It is because of Saul and his bloodthirsty house, because he killed the Gibeonites." So the king called the Gibeonites and spoke to them. Now the Gibeonites were not of the children of Israel, but of the remnant of the Amorites. The children of Israel had sworn protection to them, but Saul had sought to kill them in his zeal for the children of Israel and Judah. Therefore David said to the Gibeonites, "What shall I do, and with what shall I make atonement, that you may bless the inheritance of the Lord?" And the Gibeonites said to him, "We will have no silver or gold from Saul or from his house, nor shall you kill any man in Israel for us." So he said, "Whatever you say, I will do." Then they answered the king, "As for the man who consumed us and plotted against us, that we should be destroyed from remaining in any of the territories of Israel, let 7 men of his descendants be delivered to us, and we will hang them before the Lord in Gibeah of Saul, whom the Lord chose." And the king said, "I will give them." But the king spared Mephibosheth, the son of Jonathan, the son of Saul, because of the Lord's oath that was between them, between David and Jonathan, the son of Saul. So the king took Armani and Mephibosheth, the 2 sons of Rizpah, the daughter of Ai, whom she bore to Saul, and the 5 sons of Michal, the daughter of Saul, whom she brought up for Adriel, the son of Barzillai the Mahalathite. And he delivered them into the hands of the Gibeonites, and they hanged them on the hill before the Lord. Merab was Michal's older sister. She was supposed to have been given to David as his wife, but she was given to Adriel instead. Michal had no children, but she took the 5 sons of her sister and raised them as her own. So they fell, all 7 together, and were put to death in the days of harvest, in the first days, in the beginning of barley harvest. Now Rizpah, the daughter of Ai, took sackcloth and spread it for herself on the rock from the beginning of harvest until the late rains poured on them from heaven. And she did not allow the birds of the air to rest on them by day, nor the beasts of the field by night. This is not a real pleasant picture, and it's probably why I always just kind of passed over it, because I didn't really want to think about it. But let's go back and talk about Michal versus Rizpah. This is a little bit small to see, but there's a lot of material here. Michal was the daughter of Saul, sister of Jonathan, younger sister of Merab. Merab was promised to David for killing Goliath, but she was given instead to Adriel. Well, her father found out that Michal was in love with David, and so he said, "Okay, I can use that." And she became a political pawn in the mechanisms of the kingdom. She was in love with David. David nowhere says he was in love with Michal. And it will become very apparent that he probably never loved Michal. He killed the Philistines not to marry Michal, to become the king's son-in-law. Think about that. Michal helped David escape from her father when he wanted to kill him. She warned David, helped him escape, and then she was rewarded by her father by being sent away to a new husband, Paltiel, for approximately 22 years. David never went and got her. If she had saved his life, I know my husband would have come and found me sooner than 22 years. At least I hope he would. But David never went. For 22 years, he did not go get her until King Saul had died. And it was David's choice to validate his claim to the throne. He required that Michal be stolen back from Paltiel. That's a political pawn. She is never included in David's household. When it lists his wives and his children, she is always called the daughter of Saul. She was David's first wife, but she's never called his wife. She's called the daughter of Saul. Her sister Merab died, and Michal raised her 5 nephews as her own. And David chose all 5 of these grandsons of Saul to be hanged by the Gibeonites. You talk about a slap in the face and devastation to Michal. I never used to think Michal was a very nice person. She did some things that were not real smart, but I feel sorry for her. Her final response, this is the last time we hear anything of Michal in Scripture, and I would imagine she gave up and disappeared. Now let's compare Rizpah. Rizpah was a concubine of Saul. She wasn't even a wife. She was just a concubine. She bore Saul 2 sons. She also was a political pawn. Abner, one of Saul's sons, raped Rizpah because to validate his ascension to the throne, his claim to the throne. She was a political pawn. David chose both of her sons to be hung by the Gibeonites. Her final response, faithfulness. Remember what we read? So they fell all together and were put to death in the days of harvest, in the first days, in the beginning of barley harvest. Now Rizpah, the daughter of Ai, took sackcloth and spread it for herself on the rock from the beginning of harvest until the late rains poured on them from heaven. And she did not allow the birds of the air to rest on them by day, nor the beasts of the field by night. In Deuteronomy, it talks about if anyone is hung on a tree, they have to be taken down by the same day. They can't be left day after day. It's an abomination. What is Rizpah's legacy? She remained faithful from April to October to her loved ones, even though it was a thankless, disgusting, smelly task. I can imagine the odor that emanated off of those bodies hanging on the tree, and yet she would not allow anything to desecrate those bodies. The animals, the wild animals by night, the birds during the day. Nowhere does it say Michal helped her. Nowhere does it say anyone helped her. Later, someone did go tell King David what she was doing, and we'll mention that later. But it was a thankless, disgusting, lonely, smelly task. So what can our lesson be from this? We can remain faithful to caring for others even during the thankless, disgusting, smelly tasks of a caregiver. So, what are some of our disgusting tasks? The very first lesson I had to learn was after my mother died and I was taking care of my grandmother. It was probably 2 or 3 weeks after she had passed away. And my grandmother, all of a sudden, I'm there in the room, and she reaches into her mouth, pulls her false teeth out, and plops them in my hand. And I thought, oh dear. Okay, I ran to the bathroom, and I looked down at those nasty teeth, and I thought, okay, I can either gag and throw up, which is what I wanted to do, or I can clean these dentures for the Lord. There is nobody on earth I will clean nasty, dirty dentures, but I will clean them for the Lord. That was my first lesson, that I have a choice. I have a choice how I respond. I can respond really facial expressions and everything else and all the noises, or I can choose to do them for the Lord. So some other disgusting tasks. And by the way, you can do anything with gloves on. I learned that. It is difficult to help bathe someone every day. By the way, an elderly person does not have to have a bath every day or a shower every day. They're not active. They're not getting hot and sweaty. My father, for a while I had my father downstairs and I had my mother-in-law upstairs, and they both had bells. And my mother-in-law loved to take a bath every single day. My father, he didn't really care. So I told my mother-in-law, I said, okay, you get a bath on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. My dad gets a shower on Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday. That was the only way I could work it out. So every day I was bathing someone. I found out and learned, warm the towels or clothes in the clothes dryer before they get back out of the shower. Their body temperature does not work as well as ours does when you're younger. I also learned, don't put them in the microwave, because if there's any food or anything on it, it'll burn a hole in them. From experience. A thin washcloth. I love a big, thick, nice washcloth or a scrubby. My father and my mother-in-law could not handle those big, luxurious washcloths. They needed an old, worn-out, thin one, because the arthritic hands can't wring out the big, thick, luxurious washcloth. So get a thin washcloth. They'll be able to use it easier. Always, always, always have a tub bench or a stool or something for them to sit on when they're taking a bath or a shower. My mother-in-law loved to take a bath. She would take one every day of her life. She'd get up at 4 in the morning. She was a school teacher for many years. So a bath every morning. Her husband would pour her bath water. But it got to where she could not get in and out of the bathtub. So we got a bench that sits in the tub and outside the tub, and you can sit on the outside of the tub, and there's a handle, and you can slide yourself in, and you could help lift her legs up into the tub and finish sliding over. There's a back on it for her to rest on, and then I had a shower head that came down so that it would get near her. That worked for a long time. Eventually, she found out showers are pretty cool. So it was much easier to give her a shower, but I made sure that she was sitting. Toileting. How many have ever gone into a nursing home or a facility or even someone's home? Well, I won't say that. Don't answer that part of it. And you walk in and you immediately know that there's a urinal or a bedside commode or something that smells. We went through everything trying to figure out what would help, what would work to keep it from smelling, but not be so overwhelming and so powerful that it would cause any allergies or anything. We tried bleach, we tried Lysol, we tried Pine Sol, we tried all kinds of things. My brother actually came up with this and said, put a tablespoon or a capful of mouthwash, Listerine, or you can go to the dollar store and get the cheap brand from there, just $1 for a big bottle. My dad liked the peppermint or the spearmint. And put that in the potty after every use, or the urinal. It kills germs and it smells great. That, I think, on your papers, when you picked up your papers when you came in, that's my #1 caregiver tip that I was thrilled to learn, and it worked. The house did not smell. Use a baby bed mattress under the bed sheet to protect against accidents. If you get a baby bed mattress pad, you can turn it sideways and it exactly fits a twin bed, which or that much where your loved one sleeps. And it's real easy to throw in the wash. It's not a big, bulky, full mattress pad. Or you can get the blue pads from Amazon. It's the cheapest place that I actually was able to order some, and you can buy them in bulk on there and they'll deliver them to your door. This is really important. Depends are pull-ups or adult underwear. They are not diapers. My father he was an older gentleman and had prostate problems, and he would leak. He would leak before, he would leak after, he would leak in between. I was washing his clothes constantly, but he was not going to wear diapers. Eventually, I said to him, I said, Dad, these are not diapers. They're just paper underwear. They're adult underwear. I said, you would really help me not have to do quite so much wash if you would be willing to try these. Just try them. If you don't like them, that's fine. But would you try them? He wore them from then on because he was helping me. And any parent wants to help. They don't want to be forced to do what you tell them to do, but they are more than willing to help you out. Every parent wants to help their child. Nail care. This was the second disgusting task that I just had to learn. These are for the Lord. I'm cutting these toenails for the Lord. My grandmother, not only did she have dentures, but she had the big, thick, awful looking nails. They were horrible to cut. You could not cut them with nail clippers. So the little pliers, nail pliers, was the only thing that I could do, and I would do little bits at a time across the toe. Always cut them straight across, don't round them, and always soak their feet before you try to trim them, especially if they're really hard and have all the fungus under them. Oral care. One of the things that my dad had trouble with is his arms would get tired. He had a lot of mini strokes and still was able to function, but he would get really tired brushing his teeth. So I got an electric toothbrush because all you have to do is put it in and it does a lot of the work for you. And then have a spit dish for them to rinse their mouth out with. That worked better than anything. At this point, our vision must extend beyond the physical to the eternal in all that we do. It's easy to get frustrated and disgusted by some of the things that we have to do. And I'm not sure I put on here, I thought I did, always have gloves by the potty chair and a box of baby wipes. You can do anything with gloves and baby wipes, and you can get them clean. The way I like to put it is, in light of eternity, what does it matter? Does it matter that we have to do these nasty things? It matters because we're loving our neighbor. We're loving our loved one. And in light of eternity, if it gets done today or gets done tomorrow, if it's done for the Lord, that's all that matters. We can expect frustration, disappointment, and lots of hard work. It is not easy being a caregiver. We must be committed to compassion and heart work. Remember, God is a master weaver. He sees the backside we only see the knots and the backside of the tapestry, but he sees the perfect picture that he's weaving of our lives. And I would much rather he be the master weaver than anything that I can come up with. So we need to be patient and be faithful, just as Rizpah was faithful. If she could be faithful to that disgusting task for 7 months, I think we can be faithful as long as God wants us. I had to do it for 17 years. I've heard of many others that do it much longer. But stay faithful. Be encouraged to do it for the Lord, because that's what he's called you to do, to trust and do it for him. This I recall to my mind. This was my mother-in-law's favorite verse. This I recall to my mind, therefore I have hope. It is of the Lord's mercies that we are not consumed, because his compassions fail not. They are new every morning. Great is thy faithfulness. And that's in Lamentations 3:21 through 23. God is faithful to stay with us as we love, trust, and obey him, and stay faithful to what God has called us to do. We're going to take another short break, and then the next session's a little bit longer. We're going to deal with boundaries and independence versus dependence. How do you get your loved one to stop driving?